Hello, everybody. My name is Chen.
And my name is Craig McIntosh.
We are doing this presentation today based on the topic of cultural influence on leadership styles. The reason we chose this topic because we believe it's a more increasingly competitive global marketplace. More and more companies nowadays are facing dealing companies from other cultures. We found out that many managers they failed their projects are not because they were planning terribly on their strategies, but more likely they were unable to deal with the cultural differences. There are studies showing that there is a quality called a contingent attribute, meaning one quality of a manager seems to be a strong point in one culture may not seem to be a strong point in another culture.
We felt like this would be a beneficial topic based on our class due to the various backgrounds that are found on the campus of SIUE. We have students from all over the globe, so we felt like this would be beneficial to whoever was affected by it, and we just think that due to the different leadership styles that everyone comes from, then maybe it might be a good idea to learn what your neighbor might be learning their leadership skills from, or how they're using them to the best of their ability in the companies that they're parlaying in, or also just to get some basic knowledge about everyone else. Because as we all know, as effective leaders, you have to know everyone around you, and if you're in certain situations where your leadership is tested, it's always a good idea to know who you're dealing with. So you may be encountering different backgrounds throughout your career as a leader.
So me and Greg, we are gonna be your hypothetically captains. We are gonna give you guys a world tour. We're gonna fly you guys to the U.S. first to talk about the leadership styles in North America, and then we're gonna fly you guys to Africa to see how the leadership styles are practiced over there. Our third stop will be Middle East to see how the Middle Easterns are practicing their leadership styles. Our first stop is to go to Europe to see how the Europeans consider what are called good leaderships. And then our last stop, we're going to fly you guys to Asia to see how the Asian leaders and managers are practicing their leadership styles.
Okay, on our first stop on the world tour, we are going to take you to America. And with America, we are going to have a decisive leadership style. Americans are very individualistic as well. They like to empower the employees that are around them. They like to basically ask you how to get the idea, or ask you in a very direct way how to get the ideas about outside of you, because they feel like that as an American, you can get the most out of people if you make them feel empowered and if you pry them and try to get as much information out of them as possible instead of sitting back. And I think a great example of this being in use is actually Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was one of the greatest basketball players of all time, as many people agree upon. And he led his team to six NBA championships during his time. And Michael Jordan was a very, very outspoken individual, as most Americans leaders are. He enjoyed the celebrity lifestyle to the point that nowadays he's actually still considered himself one of the best basketball players in the world, even though he's 50 years old. And if you ask him to this day, he will tell you he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But he was very distinct as a leader because he motivated his teammates to be one of the greatest teams of all time. And he did a very good job of getting the most out of those individuals by being a direct leader, very authoritative, very individualistic on this approach, because he was had great statistics, but at the same time he made sure to empower those around him. And I think a great example of decisive leadership came from George W. Bush during the 9/11 attacks that happened. Unfortunately, that was a very sad day in American history, but one thing about Americans is we act quickly on situations, and once George W. Bush was able to find a camera and address the American people, he was very effective in doing that by getting on national television and helping individuals cope through that situation. So, a great leader from America basically does a good job of being around, or they do a great job of empowering everyone around them and leading them through tough times or through battle as the main person on top, and they like to be seen, and as Americans they do a very good job of this. On our next stop, we are going to take you to Africa, and we're gonna basically switch things up with the leadership style with this here. They are basically the same thing. They're trying to empower individuals. They're trying to get as much information out of them as possible. However, African leadership takes a different approach in that it is not as individualistic. It's more collective, if you will. They are looking out for the benefit of the entire company or organization that they are a part of, and they get that because of their strong ethnic background that they come from and that they grow up in. African leaders are basically taught that if an individual is seeking individual glory over the overall success of the tribe, if you will, they are considered selfish and they're very frowned upon. And I think a great example of someone who does a great job of this is Nelson Mandela. Uh, at this time, Nelson Mandela is regarded as one of the greatest leaders, not just in Africa, but throughout the entire world and the history of the world. And what he was able to do to basically end equality and basically try to um, do the best that he can to bring equality to the African countries around him. It was a great inspiration to everyone around him, and he kept in mind that it was not about him. As he went to jail, unfortunately, at being proven to be a leader, though, he kept the idea of everyone around him so that they could basically realize what is going on. And he does a great job of this, and many African leaders do a great job of setting out a vision for everyone to follow. And by this clear vision, if you will, that is manifested by the leaders, they basically paint a picture for Africa or for everyone to follow. And if a African leader can effectively uh, paint this picture in a clear way, then individuals are able to see it and they are able to lead the individuals way more effectively than if they're not able to clear that vision. Our next stop is going to be to the Middle East. And the Middle East is kind of a combination of the African and American leadership styles, in that they are very, very strong as far as taking to their opinions on how the community is feels about them. They're very direct with dealing with others. They are trying to basically get the best benefit for the entire organization as a whole, as opposed to an individualistic approach. However, they do take something from the American leadership style as well, in that they are very decisive in their decisions and they're very authoritative as well. And by that they're meaning that whenever they're coming down upon you as a leader, they are very direct with you. They're trying to get as much information about you. They're very, very strong on time. Time is one of their biggest issues. They try to maximize as much time to increase the amount of efficiency for the company that they possibly can. Arab leaders also are it's a very male dominated society. Unfortunately, women are not viewed in the same breath as men in this regard. Men are considered to be the stronger individuals, and they're considered to be the ones who make the better decisions. That's just how their particular culture is found, and I think this is a great example of how, when I mentioned earlier, is one big difference coming from a class that we are in America. We consider men and women to be equal on certain levels. This is one situation where it's completely different, as men and women are not considered equal. So this is one thing to consider when you're, as a leader, if you're experiencing a situation as a female leader, you're experiencing a situation where you run into someone who may be from the Middle East and they may not view you in the same regard as someone who is from a male-dominated society. So I think that is one thing that you have to take in respect. So to wrap up, Middle Eastern leaders they have to take who they are with in the community in strong regard, and they do it in a very authoritative and decisive way. And at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Chin so he can take us on our next stop for our world tour.
Very good job, Craig. Also, before I take over you guys to our next stop, I also want to sum what I have realized that did research on the Middle Eastern leadership styles. Also, they consider if you are very strong in faith, you are very religious. Those are considered to be a great leadership styles. All right. All right, guys. Our next stop, we are going to Europe. I'm going to choose the country, the Netherlands, as the example because that's a place where I spent 2 years living with before coming to the United States. I want to say, based on my personal experience, that I found out that being a great Dutch leader, being able to participate with the people is considered to be a great leadership quality. For example, the Dutch Queen. Every year there's a Dutch Queen's Day, as you can see on the pictures. Actually, the Dutch Queen each year will choose a different city to go to visit. She will actually spend the time with the people. As you can see, there are not many securities around, and the distance between the people and the Dutch Queens are very close. So in Dutch companies, if a manager can actually do the work with the employee together, which is practicing the participative leadership style, that person will be considered as a great leader. Also, if you are very innovative, that is also considered to be a great leadership style in Holland. As you can see in this picture, that's a Dutch company designed a vehicle that can be used in the future. It can be used both as a vehicle and a helicopter. The whole idea behind this product is to save the gas, to be more efficient in the more busy city life. So being able to thinking ahead and being able to stay creative, those are two very important qualities to be a Dutch leader. And in many other European countries, such qualities are pretty much the same, applied to different cultures. Also, if you are very enthusiastic, you are very have a clear vision, you can empower your people. Those are all considered to be important qualities to be a great European leaders. Finally, let's take our last journey. We are going to have our final stop to Asia to see how the Asian leaders work. The first country I'm going to use example is China. The Chinese leaders are very influenced based on the Confucius theory, which is to talk more based on the theories. Based on his idea is very, very different than the American's leader because the Chinese leaders are more focusing on talking instead of implementing the specific actions. So if you are jumping into actions very fast, those are considered to be a very, very negative effect on being a great leader. Also, Japanese leadership styles, they are very, very indirect compared to the Western leadership styles. Instead of talking to you, give the employees the feedback face by face. The Japanese leaders, being a great Japanese leadership styles, the employees prefer a more indirect communications. Many Japanese managers give their feedback to their employees by writing, and also more like in a person, not in the whole public. The purpose to do that is to save face. If you can save face in most Asian cultures, that's considered to be a very great leadership style. Let's go back to the next thing. In many Asian cultures, especially China, if you are a great leader, hierarchy is considered to be very important. Not the same like the US. People have freedom to talk about their different ideas, but a great leader in China is being a person who are on the very top of the hierarchy. Such person is to be respected. Also, the way how people are introducing each others, they really like to be called by their titles instead of in American or the Western cultures being called Mr. Smith or Mr. John. The Chinese or the Asian leadership styles prefer to be called their titles. This is Mr. President, Mr. Manager of certain department, or Mr. Project Managers. Also, another important quality to be a great leader is something called a guanxi. It is a Chinese word, means relationships. Because Asian or specifically China is a communism-based cultures, so people are more focusing on the entire community. And guanxi nowadays is playing a very important role in the society. Guanxi plays a role as if you know someone and who know you are, this can make you to be a great leader. Nowadays, if you have a very broad connections with people from different fields, people will look at you as a great leader because you have more connections. On the other hand, the Indian managers, if they are normally very risk-taking. So if you want to be a great leader in Indian cultures, you better get ready to take some risky actions. But whereas this quality is considered not as a strong point in other Asian cultures. Alright guys, so that's the end of the tour. I really hope you guys enjoyed this short presentation me and Greg gave you guys. To conclude, we want to say that the most important thing we hope you guys learned is something called the contingent attribute. Keep this in mind that one good quality in one culture may not work in some other cultures. However, we found there are some universal qualities that are considered to be a great leader in all cultures, which are the ability to have the foresight, willingness to encourage colleagues and staffs, ability to communicate clearly with employees, the trustworthiness, your dynamic presence with employees. Also, if you are keeping a positive attitude, and also most importantly, you are being confident. However, there are some things that are actually vary from culture to culture, which are enthusiasm, risk-taking, ambition, humility, sincerity, and compassion. So overall, we really hope you guys enjoyed taking this world tour with us, and I hope what you learned from this PowerPoint can help you guys to be a better leader in the future, to be more globally competitive. Thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoy this.